All right. Good morning. My name is Tim Engel. I'm working with Pradip Shukla at Chapman University. We're putting together a series of videos talking to people about careers in uh, production, operations, fabrication, manufacturing, and various things like that to encourage college kids and others, maybe young adults, to consider careers in manufacturing, operations, supply chain, those kinds of things. Today, we're going to be talking with an old friend of mine from all the way back to elementary school. We went to Roosevelt Elementary School in Linwood, and his name is Stan Mileski. And I look forward to it's going to be exciting to chat with him and hear all about his journey. So, without no further ado, Stan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, hi, Tim. Good morning. My name is Stan Mileski. I've actually been working around the composites industry for about 40 years. None of that, not all of that professionally, just part of that as a hobby. I started building composite airplanes. I saw a little Burt Rutan thing that looked like it was flying backwards and thought that was pretty neat. So I started building things like that. Eventually turned it into a business and ended up playing around in the even so far as the aerospace industry and having my own shop for about 20 years. So uh, things have worked out good. I've been around the block, and I like to say, I don't know that I'm a master of all trades in composites, but I know quite a bit about it. So I'm happy to pass that on and share it with some people. It'd be a great career move for somebody to get into, and there's lots of stuff just opening up every day. So
Yeah, the other reminder is that the fact is that there's a lot more jobs available and careers available in manufacturing and related fields like you and I had, other than probably 50-60% of the jobs are there, and only about 10% are in high tech stuff like working in AI and those kinds of things, working at X or Google or Microsoft, those kinds of places. So Stan, we'll kick off with the first question that I have for you, and
sure,
it's
Tim.
just the same kind of questions that I ask everybody I talk to. But why did you decide on a career in operations, aerospace, and in your case, composites?
For me, it would just kind of happened as an accident because, like I said earlier in my introduction, that was I just decided I became a pilot in late '70s and really enjoyed flying. Flew hang gliders back when I was a kid, and am currently flying sailplanes when I get the opportunity. And I just kind of fell into it accidentally because I decided I wanted to fly. I discovered it was very expensive. And the best way to do it was to build your own airplane because they went a lot faster and you could go places quicker and they were affordable. So aside from the initial investment of buying the airplane, which by the way was the payment plan because you're building this thing as you go. So that's kind of how I just happened into the industry. And after about 7 or 8 years of building, I started making parts for friends. The next thing I know, I'm working in a race car shop making race car parts, and one thing led to another. I eventually started my own business and worked in the composites and in benchmark composites and benchmark racing for better than 22, 23 years. I finally retired last year, but that's how it kind of accidentally happened. And I've worked in the aerospace industry, been at Virgin Galactic and places like that, and just had a wonderful time. It's been a great career, and it's a wonderful career for somebody young starting out to get into, or even somebody if you want to make a career change. It's a good career opportunity.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask this question because there might be some more specifics there. How did you prepare for this career? A lot of people they go to a 4-year college and then maybe they go to some master's program or a PhD program or something like that. But did yours involve college, or was it kind of a do it yourself kind of thing?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Tim, because as I started building my first airplane, which was called the Dragonfly, and that was in, I believe, 1985, so it goes back a ways. Um, I discovered I really liked this, and I said, I wonder how I can take advantage of learning to do more of this. And I discovered Cerritos College, in Cerritos, and I guess they're actually in Norwalk. But anyway, Cerritos College has a great plastics manufacturing program, and I got to know Terry Price very well, who was the department manager. He has since retired, and somebody else has taken over. But from my understandings, they still have a really good composites program there. And one of the things they do is they have classroom time and they have lab time, which is basically workshop time. So you get some hands-on, and you get to learn a little bit of everything. It's not one specific thing, but very, very heavy on plastic. You can also learn injection molding. They have a big department for doing that kind of stuff. But plastics in general, which people don't think of fiberglass and carbon fiber too much as a plastic, but it is. The resin it's a structurally reinforced plastic is all it is. And those little fibers do their job. And whether
so was that
carbon fiber or fiberglass, it doesn't matter.
That's very cool. So was that a certificate program, or was it a?
You can get certificates, and each time you finish a class, Tim, or they actually have a 2-year program, you can get an AA in plastics manufacturing technology there if you want to. But the nice thing about that school is if you want to go take a few classes, you can get your feet wet, and it also tells a prospective employer that you have some interest in learning that. And, you know, depending how far you go, I had one kid working for me in my shop that ended up, he's a planner at Boeing in Texas now. And he just started working for me, ended up working for me for 8 years in my shop and really learned a lot of everything, which is kind of nice. Not to say my shop was anything special, but if you get a job in a small composites business, you maybe get to do a little bit of everything. A lot of times you go to work at, you know, SpaceX or Boeing, as you know, you work on one project for 5 years. And small shops,
if you're lucky,
are really cool because you get to do a little bit of everything: fabrication, mold design, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, now, if I can backtrack for just a second, before you got started in like building your own airplane and that kind of thing, did you have any secondary education, or like after high school, or did you have what kind of a job path or career path did you have after school?
You know, it's funny because I didn't work in composites for years and years. I got out of high school and just looking for a job. I ended up finding a job in a textile mill, and I went to work as got to work as just kind of a general labor thing. You know, fresh out of high school, you don't know what you're going to do. You're thinking about all these different things, but I ended up getting this job, and it ended up being a career path. I ended up becoming what's called a textile dyer, and learned that job, became a supervisor, and did a whole bunch of other stuff in the textile industry for about 20 years. And then I started building airplanes a little later in life. I was probably early 30s. I started building my first airplane. So out of high school, working for probably 18, 20 years by the time I started working in composite. So yeah, the textile business was good to me, and that was
you were heavily involved. So there you go. You're still involved with manufacturing, and it's like
I've always been involved in some kind of manufacturing business.
Yeah, and you were in the early part. It was supply chain because you were a buyer, right? So it was
no, not real. A dyer. I would match colors on the cloth. And happened to be in this particular building in Compton, we dyed carpet. That was how they used to manufacture carpet. They make it into these huge, big pieces of carpet that are literally 1,000-yard long, and then they load it into a machine, and we would put dyes and chemicals in there in this huge machine. It was almost like a washing machine. It would roll the stuff around and keep it going. Nowadays, they do it completely different. It's done with on a continuous line, like almost like a conveyor belt, and it just goes through, and they drop the dye on it like with a squeegee at the end, and they do all these different colors. It's amazing what you can do with chemistry. You get all in one dye bath. You get all these different kinds of colors. It's a matter of the way the yarns are charged, and each one will dye with a different kind of dye. But anyway, it just goes on and on. But it's all been manufacturing, Tim.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, sometime maybe we'll do another video sometime, but we can talk a little bit about one of your airplanes and our common friend who worked for Boeing, who
Oh yeah, Phil.
Phil Langford.
Yeah, Phil Langford.
Yes. Um,
Well, one of the other, maybe next time we do this also, I'll see if I can't get together some samples of a few things to show some materials and what you can do with them. And
yeah,
maybe
that'd be great.
organize a
Yes.
few pictures. I thought we could do this first one and see what's happening.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we can build on this and do some other ones.
Yep. 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 So another question I have for you, Stan, is, I think it's the dream of a lot of young men and women to have their own business,
Oh yeah.
you made that dream happen. How can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you started by building uh, parts and building an airplane and building parts for cars. I saw one of the hoods for the Mustang that you had at your house, which was really cool. That composite hood. But how did you get to where you could have your own business? Can you talk a
You know,
little bit about that journey?
well, it's funny. We were talking about, I was building airplanes in my garage, obviously not getting paid for that. And I
Yeah.
discovered a little bit of interest. I said, I wonder how you make a wheel pan. I just wanted to make a wheel cover for it. So I started looking a little bit. I remember back then we didn't have the internet. it was a little different.
Yeah.
Research was harder to do, but I
Yes.
discovered a little bit about making molds, and I made a wheel pant mold. And it was crude and basic, but it made decent parts. And then I improved upon that. And of course, I'm doing all of this in my garage. And the next thing I know, I have people asking me if I can make things. Can you make this? Can you make that? Do a little this and that. So I kind of did that. And I was working just odd jobs, working for a friend, actually running a crew for him, doing some different things. And I hooked up at Cerritos College and started going there and taking classes in the evening. And there was a
Mhm.
work board there that had jobs available. And there was one really cool looking job for Clayton Cunningham Racing in El Segundo that said making race car parts, full time temporary for like 6 months. And I said, that sounds cool. Well, I pursued that, got hired, and we were making the body work for the three Nissan 260Zs, I think, that went on to win Le Mans that year. That was 95, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And they had three cars. They all finished, and one of them won their class. So it was exciting. And I hated to see that go. But by the time that was done, that basically just put my foot in the door, and I discovered what I could do. And I learned a lot working at that job. And one thing led to another. The next thing I know, I'm making parts in my garage for myself. And I have this little business called Benchmark Composites. And the rest is history. But that's pretty much
Wow.
how it happened. And it was a relatively quick span of time between about 92 and 95. In those 3 years, I started working composites and making a business of it.
That's amazing.
Although
And how
I started building my airplane in I think that was 1986, and got that done in 91 and flew it, that first one. Next time we go around, I'll have some pictures and things like that we can share.
Yeah, that would be super. Yeah, fascinating. I think I might have mentioned this story to you, but recently, Dr. Shukla and I were at Cal State Fullerton, and there was a speaker talking about a career in pharmaceuticals and developing different medications and supplements and all kinds of things. And he showed this one slide, and it was like a squiggly line, and there was nothing on it but a squiggly line. He goes, "What do you think that is?" And I leaned over to Pradip and I said, "Career path." And then he hit another button, and it populated all the little jumps he made throughout his life.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
isn't that amazing? Like you worked in textiles, you work in composites, you worked all over the place, and you're just barely touching the surface right now. But I think it's sometimes people they'll spend their whole career working one program. Like we had somebody at McDonnell Douglas who worked, I think it was B-1 bomber for 30
hmm
years, and that was like
yeah,
their whole career. One program, that was it.
yeah,
And a lot of us we went from MD-11 to MD-80 to C-17 to T-45 to we're always hopping around because aerospace was sort of cyclical about every 5 to 7 years.
yeah, right.
But you've had that as well, but a lot of it is your interest, and then you grew it. into a business. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's that can work for probably just about anything for anybody that's listening. If you have a really, really good desire and an interest in something, it's a great way to cultivate your career path, is to incorporate it with something that you really like to do in your personal life. Like mine
Yes.
was fly airplanes, and I enjoy building. So the next thing you know, I have a business building composite stuff, and some of them for a long time I built parts for a company out in Corona called Aircraft Spruce and Specialty, which is major airplane distributor for parts and things like that. And if you're building your own airplane, you know who they are, because you're spending lots of money with them every week, I can assure you. I built a lot of parts for them over the years, their production stuff that they sell, just fiberglass. And it wasn't a ton of money, but it was something that would keep the guys I had working in the shop busy, through those little lulls between big jobs. And like we were talking about a moment ago, my shop, we did a little bit of everything. We did mold and tool building. And a lot of people they see a thing, they go, that's a mold. In the industry, that's actually called a tool, because you use it to fabricate a part. So it's a tool.
Right.
But you'll hear them referred to as molds too. But anyway, I discovered I really like doing all of that stuff. And the next thing you know, I'm making parts, in my garage, and filing a DBA and starting a business. That's just the way it worked out.
Well, I think I saw one of those when I was at your house with Phil, and you loaned the tool to him, I believe.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I gave him I don't remember what it was for. I think it was a wheel pant or something like that.
Yeah. All right,
that's
Stan.
a real popular part I still make for the very easies and long easies. Just not too many. It's not heavy marketing, but it's a part that I still make for people. And now Phil saw that one sitting there when he was visiting in my garage, and just take that, make another one.
Yeah. Well, Phil, that's another story that needs to be told, if he'd be willing to share it. But I mean, there's a guy that, I knew him 25 years ago or whatever, and I knew he lived down near San Diego. He lives in, I guess it's San Marcos, but and his wife, on their property, his wife has like 50 horses boarded.
Yeah.
And some of them are hers, I guess. And then he's got a great big giant garage, and part of what's in there is like 50 old motorcycles.
Yeah.
So he's got quite, and that's not even his career.
Now he's building airplanes in the hangar too at the airport. So
yeah, he's got his hands
full. One he got from me, and one that he flies that is his own, and I think another one that's kind of working on.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got some airplane projects.
Yes.
But they're fun. They're fun to have in your garage. Trust me, I know.
Yes. With Phil, I saw pictures that he shared. He said, this is the Triumph. It was like a 67 Triumph 650 or whatever. He goes, this is the picture before, and it was like a basket case, right? And then he said, this is the picture after, and it looked like a brand new bike.
Yep.
Yeah. So he knows what he's doing. Yeah. Next question, Stan, I've got for you is, can you share some lessons you learned along the way? You've had a long career. You've done different things. You've had highlights. You probably had some low points. But what are some of the lessons that you learned along the way?
Well, generally, trust people that verify, and don't trust them too much, because I've been surprised by a few people. Generally speaking, I think, dealing with the public or customers or just anything in day-to-day life, you need to try and get along with people. And I definitely do my best to make things work for everybody. But I don't know. That's a really tough one to say. What are the life lessons I've learned along this stuff? Just be good to people. Hope that they're good to you, but trust to verify that they are. I guess that's a big thing I can say.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, having known you for all these years, even though we weren't close for many of them, we weren't in touch with each other. I could say that I remember you're still the Stan that I remember from what did we figure it's been? How long has it been? 60 years ago,
Well, since
roughly.
elementary school, and we're both
Yeah,
old guys.
yeah, yeah.
70
So,
is so 60 years.
right, but you're still the same guy, same character.
Oh, well,
You're a
thank you,
good
Tim. I
guy.
think. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And I think my impression of you, Stan, is that you bring a passion to whatever you do, and I think that you probably have done that throughout your career as
I
well.
try to.
You know?
I try to,
Yeah.
Tim. It's a good way to keep things moving.
Yes. Yes. Um, Next question I have for you is, can you touch on some achievements? I know you have a little bit already, but looking back, and achievements aren't always necessarily, when you started up your first airplane or whatever, even though that is an achievement, of course, but what would you consider to be some highlights or achievements in your
Well, obviously,
career?
I wasn't building my personal airplanes for profit. I was building them for me. Those are every one of those. I've completed 3 airplane projects throughout my lifetime, and a Dragonfly, a Very Easy, and a Long Easy. And those are obviously great achievements when you build something in the garage and you go out and you fly it. These airplanes, traveling airplanes, fully capable of doing almost 200 miles an hour. So they're big achievements. And then, of course, starting my own business and successfully running that for over 20 years is another good achievement. And then all the things we got to make along the way. And while I had that business, we did everything from making tools for dragster bodies to repairing parts for even some big name people, that you'd know in the drag racing industry, and making some really, really huge car bodies and molds and tools for airplanes. I still say molds. Technically, it's tools, but they're interchangeable words. But so those things like that are just, they leave lasting impression in my memory from having my business for so long. Because there's 2 or 3 things that really, really rank as like, wow, that was my project. When we got done, I said that was quite a project. And then
Yeah.
I got to do a little stint at Virgin Galactic a couple of years ago. So kind of like a quality control and systems analyst with another guy, and we had pretty much run the business for about 3 months, worked in production, and that was absolutely phenomenal. Just a career highlight. It was just so much fun to be there, and we were working on getting the mothership, which is called Faith, and getting that back flying again after a major rocket launch pad retrofit, which we changed the whole attach fitting where the rocket ship actually attaches to the mothership and they drop it. And we completely redid all of that. And it was just so much fun to be there. It was about a 4-month adventure. I just loved it. Definitely
For that,
career highlight. Great way to end my
were you in
career as I
Long
was
Beach,
retiring, I might add.
where were you at when
I'm
you were
sorry,
doing that?
Ken.
I'm sorry, where were you at for that assignment?
Oh, I was in Mojave. Yeah,
Oh,
I was in
Mojave.
Mojave.
Okay.
I actually stayed in Lancaster, and that was all taken care of by the company. So I was very much appreciative, and just it was such a great adventure for a job. Just so much fun. And
Yeah,
then
that's very cool.
I got to be there right till about the end, and then they rolled it out. I think a couple weeks after I left, they rolled it out and flew it. And boy, that sure was an adventure to see that. I got to see videos of it. I wasn't there for it, but I got to see it. It sure was fun.
And rumor has it there was a really cool photo of you out in the mothership. Is that something you can
Oh,
share
I
or
don't
not?
know. I hear that's just a rumor. We weren't supposed to
A
be taking
rumor.
pictures in the building. So I hear that's just a rumor.
Okay. Yeah. If it gets cleared for distribution, maybe you could share that sometime. If not, we won't share
Yeah.
it. So Stan, the last question I have for you, and this has been a great discussion, but the last question I have for
Yeah,
you for
Tim, like I
now.
said, we'll get to do this again next time. I'll prepare a little
Yeah.
bit show and
Yeah, we'll
tell that
do.
we can do.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot to share, and as long as you're willing to do
Yeah.
it, I'm willing to do it too. So
Oh,
that'd be
sure.
fantastic.
Do this again.
Yeah, yeah. But the last question I have for you is, what recommendations would you have for college students and early career individuals? The the key thing is, we're trying to encourage kids to consider careers like ours. Operations,
Well,
manufacturing.
there's so many good careers. I mean, we've always done pushing people to a career path at college, and that isn't necessarily the best thing for everybody. And it isn't necessarily the best career in general. I mean, college is great if you can do it, and if you have a desire to do it, and you want to do it. But there are a lot of good career paths in the composites industry. One of for somebody to get into the composites business, if you really want a job, well, number one, if you really want to work in a composites business, you will find a job. If you can get a little bit of college credit, like at Cerritos College, they'll take anybody. By the way, you don't have to be a resident of the city to be there. I think it's $70 or $80 a unit or something. If you can take a few units and get your feet wet, that will tell the employer that you have an interest, and he will look at your application a little closer than he'll look at the other one. So that's a good suggestion to get started. And just generally have a real interest in it and express that in your resume that you have a real interest, and you'll get small shops are great if you can get in, because shops like I had, people would learn the basics: fiberglass fabrication, building tools, building negatives, learn about mold release and draft, and there's just lots of little things that you need to learn. And a small shop will teach you a lot of these different things. And then when you go to get a job somewhere else, you'll really, your resume will stand out. And I literally had three young kids over 20 years have gone through my shop that have gone on to do really good things. And Boeing, SpaceX, just jobs like that, just good paying jobs. And they're all also career paths. So if you get a job like this and you get a good job and you just apply yourself and you're interested, you will progress right up the ladder. The one kid I had named Brett worked for me, and he ended up leaving me to go somewhere else. That was kind of a funny day, because I knew he was looking for a job and he didn't want me to know him. When he found out, it was like saying, "I got to talk to you." And I said, "Did they hire you?" What? Anyway, it was a good separation. I was happy for him to make the career move. But he, like I said, he moved to Texas, and he's a pointer Boeing now. And that job's paying, it's six figures, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
it's that's a kid that didn't go one day to college, not one day, not even
yeah,
a community college. And he's now in let's see, he's probably late 20s now, but he stepped into a career in composites, working through my shop that got him a six-figure income. So
yeah. That's
wrong with
amazing.
that?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I would wager that along your career with working with composites all those years and all the different applications you were in, you may have had an opportunity to have some patents created.
Um, I didn't myself, but I worked with some people that did things like that. There were two different things, where I literally signed non-disclosure agreements.
Right, right.
Actually,
Okay.
there's probably
Yeah,
three or four different things I can think about, but two of them really came to big fruition. And
yeah,
those companies are in business nowadays and making parts and doing well. So
yeah. That's
I did
great.
a lot of prototyping work and stuff like that. So it was all fun. It's the nice thing about composites, especially in a small shop like mine. When I say small shop, I had 6 guys working for me and me. Um, that was about 10 years ago, and then I tapered it off as I started moving down and thinking about retirement. But great place to be. Composites, and if a little shop is good, but anything you can get, you'll learn. You apply yourself, you'll do.
Yes, yes. Well, that's great. Well, Stan, it's been amazing. We've gone about 35, 40 minutes. Truly
Good.
appreciate your
And
time. and
Oh, I
we
love
can,
to do it.
yeah,
It's my
we can
pleasure.
do this. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Stan.
Oh, that's okay. We'll do this again, and I'll get some
Okay.
set up.
Yeah, that'd
So,
be great. We could delve
okay,
into
Tim.
more different things that you've done and get into more detail next time.
The alarm in my phone just went off, and it's probably going to die.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I don't
Well,
have it
Stan,
plugged in.
thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you and look forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Okay, Tim, that sounds great. I love it. I look forward to.
Okay, brother. We'll
Okay,
talk to you
thank you,
real,
sir. We'll talk to you soon.
yeah, we'll talk to you real soon and I'll be sending a copy of this to you.
Okay, very good. We'll see you later.
Okay, brother.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.